Hello everyone, greetings and welcome to Chilliteracy. Happy Wednesday. I'm back. Thought I was going to be back last week. Was not. Due to a surprise birthday trip / visit. But yes, hello everybody. How are we all doing? I hope we are all well. And the yawning commences. Doing that again. Great. Yes, how are we all? Hello to who we got. We got Harpress, we got Arian, we've got Smallcob, we've got Parola. Thank you very much, Parola, for the resub. And Arian as well. Thank you very much for the resub. Thank you very much, Darly Sam. Hello, hello. You've subscribed to Old Stone Facts. Look, I'm not going to give old stone facts where old stone facts are not necessary. There are no old stones here, therefore there are no old stones for me to give facts about. For some reason, old stone facts is really hard to say. You're doing Discord science, Andy Pants. I don't entirely know what that is, but for some reason it sounds ominous. What are you doing? Not giving those away for free. What, old stone facts? No. Sam and I saw lots of old stones. Basically. You like old stones and new stones and all stones? Yes. Yeah. We went around Avebury and the surroundings. Because Sam had never seen Avebury or West Kennet Long Barrow or Silbury Hill, which is I still maintain, for anybody not in the UK, Silbury Hill is a mound, a very large mound, a hill, if you will, built in sort of mid-Neolithic to late Neolithic, and it's just there in the Wiltshire landscape. There's nothing in it. They have dug. The people in medieval times went, oh cool, we'll build a settlement on top, so they did that. And that's not there anymore, obviously. But yeah, it's just a massive, great mound. Nobody has any idea why it's there, or what it was used for, or frankly where a lot of the earth came from to build it. But Sam and I think that it is an angry neighbour who didn't want to look at West Kennet Long Barrow and decided to ruin the view for everybody else by putting a dirty great hill in the way. So... You've been enjoying some new TLJ chiptunes at the gigs. Was I involved in making those happen? Nope. I think that's probably all Robbie. But have you thought about why not build a hill? Why would you not build it? Well, yes, that is also a good point. But it's a very large hill. And it probably took a very long time to build. But yeah, it's just there. You have now subscribed to Hill Facts. Hello, Lady Mephistopheles. Oh, excuse me. I hope you are well. Is it a very flat country? Not even in the slightest. There's hills everywhere. The place is lousy with them. You build hills because they are fun. Yes, well, you're Dutch. You need hills. The Dutch need all the hills they can get, bless. Sorry, the Dutch. You have an idea, but you had to make sure Discord's search feature was up to it. Ooh, okay. Hills are overrated, flat it's where it's at. Nah. Need something to ride your sleds from. Maybe that's what Silbury Hill was. Maybe when it was snowy. It was... Well, actually, one of my other theories is it was a trial run for the hill that you roll the cheese down. But they made it a little bit too steep. You can't find a bit of plastic that you know was somewhere, so now you're automatically worried cider-ated. Oh no! I hope not. Midwest is mid-best. Sure. Whatever you say, Andy. I have no strong opinions on American landscapes. Apart from the fact that Texas is too hot. And New Hampshire's quite pretty. Because those are the only two places I've been. You got flat, yeah. Just go to the Netherlands. They're great for flat bits. But yes, I take it everybody is doing all right. I'm doing okay, recovering, yawning, as one does. Yeah, still kind of in I should be doing things mode, because I had a, month and a bit of absolute chaos. But life can take a little bit of a slower pace now, just for a bit. So, yes. But I have stories tonight. I have 3, one of which, I hope I get to rest now. Oh no, I've been resting. That is fine. I have been resting. It's just my brain going, that's the noise it makes. Yes, I wasn't feeling too good at the end of my birthday, which wasn't ideal. But I have recovered from that, so it's all fine. But yes, 3 stories tonight. The first 2 are very short. The second one, I believe he's still in copyright, but I kind of like it as a story. It's also from Canada, so I thought, yeah, let's do a Canadian one. So I haven't found the text for that, because it's not in the public domain, but shh, don't tell anyone. But the first one is a Katherine Mansfield one. We love her, which apparently this one I haven't read. So there we go. One of the few Katherine Mansfield stories I haven't read on stream. That sucks. Oh yeah, it wasn't ideal. But I'm okay now. All is fine. But yes, a Katherine Mansfield story, and she'll see who'd have thunk. Exactly. We never read her at all here. She's great. We love Katherine. I can't speak. This bodes well for reading words, doesn't it? Yes, I'm trying to think of anything else interesting. Oh, I suppose something interesting that a fair few of you will probably appreciate as much as I do. One of my birthday presents from my parents was there's a bird conservation sanctuary place thing nearish me that it's open to the public. You can go and go see all the burbs. They do displays, this, that and the other, but their main thing is conservation. They are a wonderful place, and have lots of lovely burbs, and I used to go there fairly frequently as a child, because I like birds. Sam and I went a few years back as well, and they do like full days where you can go in like a group of 6, I think is the number of people, and basically you get to fly some of the birds, and you get sort of behind the scenes access, this, that and the other. So that was bought for me and Sam to do, which I'm very excited about. Apparently you providing the birds are in good enough mood to fly, you get to fly an eagle, an owl, a hawk and a vulture. I don't think I'll be allowed to fly Sam and my favourite vulture there, who is called Dolores, because she's flipping enormous, and I don't think I'll be able to hold her up. She's a Cinicerius vulture, or I can't remember how to pronounce it. But she's got that wonderful... the thing I love about vultures... Oh God, we got me on birds now. The thing I love about vultures is they do this little shifty walk. They're just like, I'm just coming over here. Just like shuffling their shoulders. Just... just like... Yeah, Dolores does sound like... Well, she looks like a twice divorced woman with all of the money. Like, she's got this big fluffy boa almost around her neck. And she has this wonderful habit that they said when we were there X number of years ago now, of cocking her head on one side to say hello. So she's just like walks up to you and just like cocks her head on one side, like, hi. She's adorable. We love her. It wouldn't be a literacy stream without a tangent on a tangent. No, exactly. Birds of prey are so funny. I know. They just like, especially like hawks and falcons. They're like, and eagles, to be fair. They're like, I am majestic, I am scary, I'm a big predator. And then I get wet and I look very silly and indignant. They're just so angry. They look so angry. And also kind of like they've been caught in the lens of a camera. There is especially on face, yes, exactly, on fuss, whatever. There is the RSPB, which is the Royal Society for Protection of Birds in the UK, and whoever is on their socials, because I follow them on Instagram, whoever is on their socials is absolutely nailing it. Really is. They post a lot of funny bird memes. They're very good. And the last one they posted was like 6 pictures of sparrowhawks who look like they've just been caught in the middle of doing a crime or something like that. It's great. It's really good. Eagles look very funny when they get nipped in the tail by a raven. Yes, they do. There's just, I'm majestic. Oh no, I'm not anymore. How dare you? Owls look to me like they haven't got a clue. Yeah, well, they haven't, have they? As I may have said many times, they're all eyes. Their brain is tiny. They have one mode, it is kill. If that mode is off, they don't know what to do with themselves. So, yes. I kind of hope that I get to fly, what was his name? Troy, who is their tawny owl, who is convinced he is a person. They even said that the display is just like, yeah, we can't really release him at all because he just thinks he's a human being. Because he fell out of his nest when he was very young, and he got picked up by some very well-meaning people who kept him for just a little bit too long, and therefore he was just like, oh, I'm a person now. Okay. He's a bit dense, but he was so cute. And very vocal, which is always something I quite like. Owls can be very chatty. And it always amuses me when people I think Sam didn't realise just how many noises owls make. Because everybody's like, oh, they make the toot-toot. It's like, no, they scream. Owls scream. Especially barn owls. Barn owls are just, slightly possessed. But anyway, now we've got off the topic of birds. Sorry about that. We will get on to the topic of stories. Which is why, after all, why you are all here. So text is pinned up at the top of chat if you wish to... No, sorry, only burbs? Okay. If you wish to read along. But yes, I hope you're all sitting comfortably, have some kind of drink or snack or something. And we shall begin with our first story of tonight, which is Miss Brill by Katherine Mansfield. Although it was so brilliantly fine, the blue sky powdered with gold and great spots of light like white wine splashed over the Jardin Public, Miss Brill was glad that she had decided on her fur. The air was motionless, but when you opened your mouth there was just a faint chill, like a chill from a glass of iced water before you sip, and now and again a leaf came drifting, from nowhere, from the sky. Miss Brill put up her hand again and touched her fur. Dear little thing. It was nice to feel it again. She had taken it out of its box that afternoon, shaken out the moth powder, given it a good brush, and rubbed the life back into the dim little eyes. What has been happening to me? Said the sad little eyes. Oh, how sweet it was to see them snap at her again from the red eiderdown. But the nose, which was of some black composition, wasn't at all firm. It must have had a knock somehow. Never mind, a little dab of black sealing wax when the time came, when it was absolutely necessary. Little rogue. Yes, she really felt like that about it. Little rogue biting its tail just by her left ear. She could have taken it off and laid it on her lap and stroked it. She felt a tingling in her hands and arms, but that came from walking, she supposed. And when she breathed, something light and sad, no, not sad exactly, something gentle seemed to move in her bosom. There were a number of people out this afternoon, far more than last Sunday, and the band sounded louder and gayer. That was because the season had begun. For although the band played all the year round on Sundays, out of season it was never the same. It was like someone playing with only the family to listen. It didn't care how it played if there weren't any strangers present. Wasn't the conductor wearing a new coat too? She was sure it was new. He scraped with his foot and flapped his arms like a rooster about to crow, and the bandsmen sitting in the green rotunda blew out their cheeks and glared at the music. Now there came a little fluty bit, very pretty, a little chain of bright drops. She was sure it would be repeated. It was. She lifted her head and smiled. Only 2 people shared her special seat. A fine old man in a velvet coat, his hands clasped over a huge carved walking stick, and a big old woman sitting upright with a roll of knitting on her embroidered apron. They did not speak. This was disappointing, for Miss Brill always looked forward to the conversation. She had become really quite expert, she thought, at listening as though she didn't listen, at sitting in other people's lives just for a minute while they talked round her. She glanced sideways at the old couple. Perhaps they would go soon. Last Sunday, too, hadn't been as interesting as usual. An Englishman and his wife, he wearing a dreadful Panama hat and she button boots. And she'd gone on the whole time about how she ought to wear spectacles. She knew she needed them, but that it was no good getting any, they'd be sure to break and they'd never keep on. And he'd been so patient. He'd suggested everything. Gold rims, the kind that curved round your ears, little pads inside the bridge. No, nothing would please her. They'll always be sliding down my nose. Miss Brill had wanted to shake her. The old people sat on the bench, still as statues. Never mind, there was always the crowd to watch. To and fro, in front of the flower beds and the band rotunda, the couples and groups paraded, stopped to talk, to greet, to buy a handful of flowers from the old beggar who had his tray fixed to the railings. Little children ran among them, swooping and laughing, little boys with big white silk bows under their chins, little girls, little French dolls dressed up in velvet and lace. And sometimes a tiny staggerer came suddenly rocking into the open from under the trees, stopped, stared, as suddenly sat down, flop, until its small, high-stepping mother, like a young hen, rushed scolding to its rescue. Other people sat on the benches and green chairs, but they were nearly always the same, Sunday after Sunday, and, Miss Brill had often noticed, there was something funny about nearly all of them. They were odd, silent, nearly all old, and from the way they stared they looked as though they'd just come from dark little rooms or even cupboards. Behind the rotunda the slender trees with yellow leaves down drooping, and through them just a line of sea, and beyond the blue sky with gold-veined clouds. Tum-tum-tum, tiddlum, tiddlum, tum-tiddly-tum-tum-ta, blew the band. 2 young girls in red came by, and 2 young soldiers in blue met them, and they laughed and paired and went off arm in arm. 2 peasant women with funny straw hats passed, gravely, leading beautiful smoke-coloured donkeys. A cold, pale nun hurried by. A beautiful woman came along and dropped her bunch of violets, and a little boy ran after to hand them to her, and she took them and threw them away as if they'd been poisoned. Dear me, Miss Brill didn't know whether to admire that or not. And now an ermine toque and a gentleman in grey met just in front of her. He was tall, stiff, dignified, and she was wearing the ermine toque she'd bought when her hair was yellow. Now everything, her hair, her face, even her eyes, was the same colour as the shabby ermine, and her hand, in its cleaned glove, lifted to dab her lips, was a tiny yellowish paw. Oh, she was so pleased to see him, delighted. She rather thought they were going to meet that afternoon. She described where she'd been. Everywhere, here, there, along by the sea. The day was so charming. Didn't he agree? And wouldn't he, perhaps... But he shook his head, lighted a cigarette, slowly breathed a great deep puff into her face, and, even while she was still talking and laughing, flicked the match away and walked on. The ermine toque was alone. She smiled more brightly than ever. But even the band seemed to know what she was feeling, and played more softly, played tenderly, and the drum beat, "The brute, the brute," over and over. What would she do? What was going to happen now? But as Miss Brill wondered, the ermine toque turned, raised her hand as though she'd seen someone else much nicer just over there, and pattered away. And the band changed again and played more quickly, more gaily than ever, and the old couple on Miss Brill's seat got up and marched away. And such a funny old man with long whiskers hobbled along in time to the music and was nearly knocked over by 4 girls walking abreast. Oh, how fascinating it was! How she enjoyed it! How she loved sitting here, watching it all. It was like a play. It was exactly like a play. Who could believe the sky at the back wasn't painted? But it wasn't till a little brown dog trotted on, solemn, and then slowly trotted off, like a little theatre dog, a little dog that had been drugged, that Miss Brill discovered what it was that made it so exciting. They were all on the stage. They weren't only the audience, not only looking on, they were acting. Even she had a part and came every Sunday. No doubt somebody would have noticed if she hadn't been there. She was part of the performance after all. How strange she'd never thought of it like that before. And yet it explained why she made such a point of starting from home at just the same time each week, so as not to be late for the performance. And it also explained why she had quite a queer, shy feeling at telling her English pupils how she spent her Sunday afternoons. No wonder. Miss Brill nearly laughed out loud. She was on the stage. She thought of the old invalid gentleman to whom she read the newspaper 4 afternoons a week while he slept in the garden. She had got quite used to the frail head on the cotton pillow, the hollowed eyes, the open mouth, and the high, pinched nose. If he'd been dead, she mightn't have noticed for weeks. She wouldn't have minded. But suddenly he knew he was having the paper read to him by an actress. An actress? The old head lifted. 2 points of light quivered in the old eyes. An actress, are you? And Miss Brill smoothed the newspaper as though it were the manuscript of her part, and said gently, "Yes, I have been an actress for a long time." The band had been having a rest. Now they started again. And what they played was warm, sunny, yet there was just a faint chill. A something, what was it? Not sadness. No, not sadness. A something that made you want to sing. The tune lifted, the light shone, and it seemed to Miss Brill that in another moment all of them, all the whole company, would begin singing. The young ones, the laughing ones who were moving together, they would begin, and the men's voices, very resolute and brave, they would join them. And then she too, and the others on the benches, they would come in with a kind of accompaniment, something low that scarcely rose or fell, something so beautiful, moving. And Miss Brill's eyes filled with tears, and she looked smiling at all the other members of the company. Yes, we understand, she thought, though what they understood she didn't know. Just at that moment, a boy and a girl came and sat down where the old couple had been. They were beautifully dressed. They were in love. The hero and heroine, of course, just arrived from his father's yacht. And still soundlessly singing, still with that trembling smile, Miss Brill prepared to listen. "No, not now," said the girl. "Not here, I can't." "But why? Because of that stupid old thing at the end there?" asked the boy. "Why does she come here at all? Who wants her? Why doesn't she keep her silly old mug at home?" "It's her fur which is so funny," giggled the girl. "It's exactly like a fried whiting." "Ah, be off with you," said the boy in an angry whisper. Then, "Tell me, ma petite chère." "No, not here," said the girl. "Not yet." On her way home, she usually bought a slice of honey cake at the baker's. It was her Sunday treat. Sometimes there was an almond in her slice, sometimes not. It made a great difference. If there was an almond, it was like carrying home a tiny present, a surprise, something that might very well not have been there. She hurried on the almond Sundays and struck the match for the kettle in quite a dashing way. But today she passed the baker's by, climbed the stairs, went into the little dark room, her room like a cupboard, and sat down on the red eiderdown. She sat there for a long time. The box that the fur came out of was on the bed. She unclasped the necklet quickly, without looking, laid it aside. But when she put the lid on, she thought she heard something crying. The end. Oh, Katherine Mansfield's very good at this kind of stuff. I really like that one. I mean, I like all of Katherine Mansfield's stuff, but it's sad. It's really sad. All the vibes, yeah. It's like, yeah. It's just sets it all out really, really well. It's like this older lady who's sitting there along with all the other people who are sitting there eavesdropping, and she thinks, and she feels different, she feels special, and then just two people just being a bit rude have just completely ruined her day for her. Not just her day, but probably she'll never wear that fur again either. I mean, don't buy fur, don't wear fur, but the one thing that she was, getting some joy out of to wear, and and just suddenly the realization of, oh, I'm going back to my place that's probably just the same as as the place I've imagined for all these other people who I deem, somehow lesser. It's just sad. It's just her wanting to be a part of something and not being able to. And the whole kind of, there's another note here, and it's not sadness. It's just, Katherine Mansfield, she's so good. She's so perceptive, and she really understands, like, yeah, I don't know. Like so many of these little things. It's just like, oh yeah, we've all felt this. She just gets it. She really does. I'm always seriously impressed at how well she writes, how much it's a God, brain not working. It is a stream of consciousness, there we go. But it's so beautifully written. So, yeah. I like that very much. Good old Katherine Mansfield. So yes, I hope you all enjoyed that one. Sorry if it was a bit sad, but you know. Again, Katherine Mansfield. She writes sad stuff too. I mean, mainly sad stuff, to be fair. There's always a tinge of sadness. Tinge? Yes. Twinge. Whatever. So yes, I like that one. Our next one is someone who is technically still on copyright, so I'm not a tinge. So I'm not going to put text up. I don't think I could find it anyway. But this is a Canadian short story. Another one of kind of sad as well. Yeah. Just an interesting little short story. So yes, if we are all sitting comfortably once again, we shall continue with our next story of tonight, which is A Sick Call by Morley Callaghan. Sometimes Father McDowell mumbled out loud and took a deep, wheezy breath as he walked up and down the room and read his office. He was a huge old priest, white-headed except for a shiny baby-pink bald spot on the top of his head, and he was a bit deaf in one ear. His florid face had many fine red interlacing vein lines. For hours he had been hearing confessions, and he was tired, for he always had to hear more confessions than any other priest at the cathedral. Young girls who were in trouble, and wild but at times repentant young men, always wanted to tell their confessions to Father McDowell, because nothing seemed to shock or excite him, or make him really angry, and he was even tender with those who thought that they were the most guilty. While he was mumbling and reading and trying to keep his glasses on his nose, the house girl knocked on the door and said, "There's a young lady here to see you, Father. I think it's about a sick call." "Did she ask for me especially?" he said in a deep but slightly cracked voice. "Indeed she did, Father. She wanted Father McDowell and nobody else." So he went out to the waiting room, where a girl about 30 years of age, with fine brown eyes, fine cheekbones, and rather square shoulders, was sitting daubing her eyes with a handkerchief. She was wearing a dark coat with a grey wolf collar. "Good evening, Father," she said. "My sister is sick. I wanted you to come and see her. We think she's dying." "Be easy, child. What's the matter with her? Speak louder, I can hardly hear you." "My sister's had pneumonia. The doctor's coming back to see her in an hour. I wanted you to anoint her, Father." I see. But she's not lost yet. I'll not give her extreme unction now. That may not be necessary. I'll go with you and hear her confession." "Father, I ought to let you know, maybe. Her husband won't want to let you see her. He's not a Catholic, and my sister hasn't been to church in a long time." "Oh, don't mind that. He'll let me see her," Father McDowell said, and he left the room to put on his hat and coat. When he returned, the girl explained that her name was Jane Stanhope, and her sister lived only a few blocks away. "We'll walk, and you tell me about your sister," he said. He put his black hat square on the top of his head, and pieces of white hair stuck out awkwardly at the sides. They went to the avenue together. The night was mild and clear. Miss Stanhope began to walk slowly, because Father McDowell's rolling gait didn't get him along the street very quickly. He walked as if his feet hurt him, though he wore a pair of large, soft, specially constructed shapeless shoes. "Now, my child, you go ahead and tell me about your sister," he said, breathing with difficulty, yet giving the impression that nothing could have happened to the sister which would make him feel indignant. "There wasn't much to say," Miss Stanhope replied. Her sister had married John Williams 2 years ago, and he was a good, hard-working fellow, only he was very bigoted and hated all church people. My family wouldn't have anything to do with Elsa after she married him, though I kept going to see her, she said. She was talking in a loud voice to Father McDowell so he could hear her. Is she happy with her husband? She's been very happy, Father. I must say that. Where is he now? He was sitting beside her bed. I ran out because I thought he was going to cry. He said if I brought a priest near the place, he'd break the priest's head. My goodness. Never mind, though. Does your sister want to see me? She asked me to go and get a priest, but she doesn't want John to know she did it. Turning into a side street, they stopped at the first apartment house, and the old priest followed Miss Stanhope up the stairs. His breath came with great difficulty. Oh dear, I'm not getting any younger, not 1 day younger. It's a caution how a man's legs go back on him, he said. As Miss Stanhope rapped on the door, she looked pleadingly at the old priest, trying to ask him not to be offended at anything that might happen, but he was smiling and looking huge in the narrow hallway. He wiped his head with his handkerchief. The door was opened by a young man in a white shirt with no collar, with a head of thick black wavy hair. At first he looked dazed. Then his eyes got bright with excitement when he saw the priest, as though he were glad to see someone he could destroy with pent-up energy. "What do you mean, Jane?" he said. "I told you not to bring a priest around here. My wife does not want to see a priest." What's that you're saying, young man? No one wants you here. Speak up. Don't be afraid. I'm a bit hard of hearing. Father McDowell smiled rosily. John Williams was confused by the unexpected deafness in the priest, but he stood there, blocking the door with sullen resolution, as if waiting for the priest to try and launch a curse at him. Speak to him, Father, Miss Stanhope said, but the priest didn't seem to hear her. He was still smiling as he pushed past the young man, saying, "I'll go in and sit down, if you don't mind, son. I'm here on God's errand, but I don't mind saying I'm all out of breath from climbing those stairs." John was dreadfully uneasy to see he had been brushed aside, and he followed the priest into the apartment and said loudly, "I don't want you here." Father McDowell said, Eh? Then he smiled sadly. "Don't be angry with me, son," he said. "I'm too old to try and be fierce and threatening." Looking around, he said, "Where's your wife?" And he started to walk along the hall, looking for the bedroom. John followed him and took hold of his arm. "There's no sense in your wasting your time talking to my wife. You hear?" he said angrily. Miss Stanhope called out suddenly, "Don't be rude, John." "It's he that's being rude. You mind your business," John said. "For the love of God, let me sit down a moment with her anyway. I'm tired," the priest said. "What do you want to say to her? Say it to me, why don't you?" Then they both heard someone moan softly in the adjoining room, as if the sick woman had heard them. Father McDowell, forgetting that the young man had hold of his arm, said, "I'll go in and see her for a moment, if you don't mind," and he began to open the door. "You're not going to be alone with her, that's all," John said, following him into the bedroom. Lying on the bed was a white-faced, fair girl, whose skin was so delicate that her cheekbones stood out sharply. She was feverish, but her eyes rolled toward the door as she watched them coming in. Father McDowell took off his coat, and as he mumbled to himself, he looked around the room at the mauve silk bed and the light wallpaper with the tiny birds in flight. It looked like a little girl's room. "Good evening, Father," Mrs. Williams whispered. She looked scared. She didn't glance at her husband. The notion of dying had made her afraid. She loved her husband and wanted to die loving him, but she was afraid, and she looked up at the priest. "You're going to get well, child," Father McDowell said, smiling and patting her hand gently. John, who was standing stiffly by the door, suddenly moved around the big priest, and he bent down over the bed and took his wife's hand and began to caress her forehead. "Now, if you don't mind, my son, I'll hear your wife's confession," the priest said. "No, you won't," John said abruptly. Her people didn't want her. Her people didn't want her, and they left us together, and they're not going to separate us now. She's satisfied with me." He kept looking down at her face as if he could not bear to turn away. Father McDowell nodded his head up and down and sighed. "Poor boy," he said. "God bless you." Then he looked at Mrs. Williams, who had closed her eyes, and he saw a faint tear on her cheek. "Be sensible, my boy," he said. "You'll have to let me hear your wife's confession. Leave us alone a while." "I'm going to stay right here," John said, and he sat down on the end of the bed. He was working himself up and staring savagely at the priest. All of a sudden he noticed the tears on his wife's cheeks, and he muttered as though bewildered. "What's the matter, Elsa? What's the matter, darling? Are we bothering you? Just open your eyes and we'll go out of the room and leave you alone till the doctor comes." Then he turned and said to the priest, "I'm not going to leave you here with her. Can't you see that? Why don't you go?" "I could revile you, my son. I could threaten you. But I ask you, for the peace of your wife's soul, leave us alone." Father McDowell spoke with patient tenderness. He looked very big and solid and immovable as he stood by the bed. "I liked your face as soon as I saw you," he said to John. "You're a good fellow." John still held his wife's wrist, but he rubbed one hand through his thick hair and said angrily, "You don't get the point, sir. My wife and I were always left alone, and we merely want to be left alone now. Nothing is going to separate us. She's been content with me. I'm sorry, sir. You'll have to speak to her with me here, or you'll have to go." "No, you'll have to go for a while," the priest said patiently. Then Mrs. Williams moved her head on the pillow and said jerkily, "Pray for me, Father." So the old priest knelt down by the bed, and with a sweet, unruffled expression on his florid face, he began to pray. At times his breath came with a whistling noise, as though a rumbling were inside him, and at other times he sighed and was full of sorrow. He was praying that young Mrs. Williams might get better, and while he prayed he knew that her husband was more afraid of losing her to the church than losing her to death. All the time Father McDowell was on his knees, with his heavy prayer book in his two hands. John kept staring at him. John couldn't understand the old priest's patience and tolerance. He wanted to quarrel with him, but he kept on watching the light from overhead shining on the one baby-pink bald spot on the smooth white head. And at last he burst out, "You don't understand, sir. We've been very happy together. Neither you nor her people came near her when she was in good health, so why should you bother her now? I don't want anything to separate us now, neither does she. She came with me. You see you'd be separating us, don't you?" He was trying to talk like a reasonable man who had no prejudices. Father McDowell got up clumsily. His knees hurt him, for the floor was hard. He said to Mrs. Williams in quite a loud voice, Did you really intend to give up everything for this young fellow?" And he bent down close to her so that he could hear. "Yes, father," she whispered. "In heaven's name, child, you couldn't have known what you were doing." "We loved each other, father. We've been very happy." "All right, supposing you were. What now? What about all eternity, child?" "Oh, father, I'm very sick and I'm afraid." She looked up to try to show him how scared she was and how much she wanted him to give her peace. He sighed and seemed distressed, and at last he said to John, "Were you married in the church?" "No, we weren't. Look here, we're talking pretty loud and it upsets her." "Ah, it's a crime that I'm hard of hearing, I know. Never mind, I'll go." Picking up his coat, he put it over his arm. Then he sighed as if he were very tired, and he said, "I wonder if you'd just fetch me a glass of water. I'd thank you for it." John hesitated, glancing at the tired old priest, who looked so pink and white and almost cherubic in his utter lack of guile. "What's the matter?" Father McDowell said. John was ashamed of himself for appearing so sullen, so he said hastily, "Nothing's the matter. Just a moment, I won't be a moment." He hurried out of the room. The old priest looked down at the floor and shook his head, and then, sighing and feeling uneasy, he bent over Mrs. Williams with his good ear down to her, and he said, "I'll just ask you a few questions in a hurry, my child. You answer them quickly and I'll give you absolution." He made the sign of the cross over her and asked if she repented for having strayed from the church, and if she had often been angry, and whether she had always been faithful, and if she had ever lied or stolen. All so casually and quickly as if it hadn't occurred to him that such a young woman could have serious sins. In the same breath he muttered, "Say a good act of contrition to yourself, and that will be all, my dear." He had hardly taken a minute. When John returned to the room with the glass of water in his hand, he saw the old priest making the sign of the cross. Father McDowell went on praying without even looking up at John. When he had finished, he turned and said, "Oh, there you are. Thanks for the water, I needed it. Well, my boy, I'm sorry if I worried you." John hardly said anything. He looked at his wife, who had closed her eyes, and he sat down on the end of the bed. He was too disappointed to speak. Father McDowell, who was expecting trouble, said, "Don't be harsh, lad." "I'm not harsh," he said mildly, looking up at the priest. "But you weren't quite fair. And it's as though she turned away from me at the last moment. I didn't think she needed you." "God bless you. Bless the both of you. She'll get better," Father McDowell said. But he felt ill at ease as he put on his coat, and he couldn't look directly at John. Going along the hall, he spoke to Miss Stanhope, who wanted to apologise for her brother-in-law's attitude. I'm sorry if it was unpleasant for you, Father," she said. "It wasn't unpleasant," he said. "I was glad to meet John. He's a fine fellow. It's a great pity he isn't a Catholic. I don't know as I played fair with him." As he went down the stairs, puffing and sighing, he pondered the question of whether he had played fair with the young man. But by the time he reached the street, he was rejoicing amiably to think he had so successfully ministered to one who had strayed from the faith and had called out to him at the last moment. Walking along with the rolling motion as if his feet hurt him, he muttered,
Of course, they were happy as they were, in a worldly way. I wonder if I did come between them. He shuffled along, feeling very tired, but he couldn't help thinking what beauty there was to his staunch love for her. Then he added quickly, but it was just a pagan beauty, of course. As he began to wonder about the nature of this beauty, for some reason he felt inexpressibly sad. The end.
I like that one too. Just, yeah, it is sad. Feels like, yeah, possibly I don't know if it's even a class thing. It just feels like the husband doesn't want to be separated from his wife, and he feels like if he's not someone who is a member of any religion, and she is, and he feels like that's a separation. So yeah, I really like that one. It's quite thoughtful. It's nice. It's good to think about. It's like, did the priest really do the right thing, or melancholy, exactly. Was it the right thing to do? Yes, do you realise that all of our stories tonight, the third one included, they're not the happiest of stories, so apologies for any sads. But they're all good. Still good stories. Anyway, thank you all for listening to the first half, and we shall throw you to a break, go do break-related things, and we shall see you back in about 5 minutes. Bye for now. welcome back. Hope we've all had a decent break. And done break-related things. Story actually reminded you of something that comes up at work sometimes. You get a bilingual family members who want to interpret for a non-English speaking patient. And sometimes, oh, I see. They just want to, how hard to intervene, because ethically speaking the patient has the right to know what's going on, but a lot of the times they'll naturally trust their spouse, kid, whoever's way more than you, and the relative is usually just trying to spare them pain. Yeah, that's difficult. That is a difficult one. Or like they can interpret and like try and like you naturally, I suppose, if there's a course of action that said family member sort of wants the patient to take more than another one, then they're going to probably be a little bit more towards that in their translation, I suppose. Interpreting, sorry. That's a really difficult one. Because the patient needs to know like hard facts rather than anything that's been sort of emotionally influenced. That's hard. And I mean, like, excuse me, just generally, like, that little story, it's such a good example of of the difficulties of knowing what to do in these kinds of instances, and the the sort of example of what compassion is, sort of meeting people where they are. Like, you can not agree with everybody's views, or not even views, but like how everybody's culture and this, that and the other, but you do still have to attempt to understand where they're coming from. But then there's the question of if someone has, as the woman did in this story, if she has actually asked for help, or not help, but if she has actually asked for a priest but doesn't want her husband to know, like, that's such an awkward position for the priest to be in, because it's just like, this is obviously causing the husband some pain, but it's just difficult. I mean, it's, also feels a little bit controlling from the husband, I guess, but also if it was from a genuine desire not to be separated from his wife, and he thought that it would separate them, then the woman wanted to talk to the priest. In this case, it was her decision. Yeah, absolutely. But it's just I feel like it's the kind of thing that the priest probably could have talked to the husband a little bit more about, like, you won't be separated, you'll be fine. Unless it's kind of actual, like, separation in the afterlife kind of thing. Is like, oh, we won't be married for forever. You got annoyed at the husband? I can see that, but also I feel like if you actually, like, if you put yourself in his shoes, when you have married someone and her entire family, like, everybody has basically shunned you all, because basically I mean, there might be some class in it as well, I don't know, but they're either classist or just like anti-atheist, I suppose. If a whole group of people shun you, then you're gonna have that resentment. So you can see why, but yes, he if his, well, actually, you can see why he but also, if to his knowledge his sister-in-law has just randomly brought this priest to him and his wife, and she doesn't want him to know that she's asked for him, that's going to seem like a massive invasion. Like, it's like this priest just randomly turned up. As far as he knows, his wife doesn't want that priest there. So as far as he knows, he's doing right by her. If she had told him that that's what she wanted, I feel like that would have been a bit of a different conversation. Then it would be just like him directly going against her wishes, but he didn't know. To him, it was just like, there's just a priest that's just turned up. So, yeah. I mean, generally just, they could communicate a bit better. You mean when it's an us against the world kind of situation that becomes part of your bond, and it feels like the other person has changed their mind somehow in that fundamental issue, that can be really scary and upsetting. Oh yeah, absolutely. You think you forgot that he didn't know? Yeah, he didn't know. Yeah. She didn't want him to know because she was scared of how he would how he would react, and it would hurt him, which, fair enough. So yeah, like I sympathise with both of them, obviously. No one's necessarily right or wrong in this particular instance, but I think it's just a really good little story to shed light on this kind of thing. Shed light, I don't know, it's not quite outline this kind of situation, I guess. Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. Anyway, the next story is a little bit longer. Good look into humanity, ethical dilemma, etc. Yes. The next story is by D.H. Lawrence, or as Eric Morecambe would say, do you know what the D.H. stands for, D.H. Lawrence? Dirty hardbacks. This is not one of D.H. Lawrence's smuttier novels, stories, fear not. I bloody well hope not, it's a kid. But yes, this is also kind of a sad one, and I suppose it's got a little bit of a moral in here as well. But it's also kind of not fun exactly, but it's it's an interesting. Yeah, you'll see. But yes, if we are all back sitting comfortably with drink, snack, pet, anything, then we shall continue with our final story for tonight. The wonderfully titled The Rocking Horse Winner by D.H. Lawrence. There was a woman who was beautiful, who started with all the advantages, yet she had no luck. She married for love, and the love turned to dust. She had bonny children, yet she felt they had been thrust upon her, and she could not love them. They looked at her coldly, as if they were finding fault with her, and hurriedly she felt she must cover up some fault in herself, yet what it was that she must cover up she never knew. Nevertheless, when her children were present, she always felt the centre of her heart go hard. This troubled her, and in her manner she was all the more gentle and anxious for her children, as if she loved them very much. Only she herself knew that at the centre of her heart was a hard little place that could not feel love. No, not for anybody. Everybody else said of her, "She is such a good mother, she adores her children." Only she herself and her children themselves knew it was not so. They read it in each other's eyes. There were a boy and 2 little girls. They lived in a pleasant house with a garden, and they had discreet servants, and felt themselves superior to anyone in the neighbourhood. Although they lived in style, they always felt an anxiety in the house. There was never enough money. The mother had a small income, and the father had a small income, but not nearly enough for the social position which they had to keep up. The father went into town to some office, but though he had good prospects, these prospects never materialised. There was always the grinding sense of the shortage of money, though the style was always kept up. At last the mother said, "I will see if I can't make something," but she did not know where to begin.
She racked her brains and tried this thing and the other, but could not find anything successful. The failure made deep lines come into her face. Her children were growing up. They would have to go to school. There must be more money. There must be more money. The father, who was always very handsome and expensive in his tastes, seemed as if he never would be able to do anything worth doing. And the mother, who had a great belief in herself, did not succeed any better, and her tastes were just as expensive. And so the house came to be haunted by the unspoken phrase, "There must be more money, there must be more money." The children could hear it all the time, though nobody said it aloud. They heard it at Christmas, when the expensive and splendid toys filled the nursery. Behind the shining modern rocking horse, behind the smart doll's house, a voice would start whispering, "There must be more money, there must be more money." And the children would stop playing to listen for a moment. They would look into each other's eyes to see if they had all heard, and each one saw in the eyes of the other two that they too had heard. There must be more money, there must be more money. It came whispering from the springs of the still swaying rocking horse, and even the horse, bending his wooden champing head, heard it. The big doll, sitting so pink and smirking in her new pram, could hear it quite plainly, and seemed to be smirking all the more self-consciously because of it. The foolish puppy, too, that took the place of the teddy bear, he was looking so extraordinarily foolish for no other reason but that he heard the secret whisper all over the house, "There must be more money." Yet nobody ever said it aloud. The whisper was everywhere, and therefore no one spoke it. Just as no one ever says, "We are breathing," in spite of the fact that breath is coming and going all the time. "Mother," said the boy, Paul, one day, "why don't we keep a car of our own? Why do we always use Uncle's, or else a taxi?" "Because we're the poor members of the family," said the mother. "But why are we, Mother?" "Well, I suppose," she said slowly and bitterly, it's because your father has no luck." The boy was silent for some time. "Is luck money, Mother?" he asked, rather timidly. "No, Paul, not quite. It's what causes you to have money." "Oh," said Paul vaguely. "I thought when Uncle Oscar said filthy lucre, it meant money." "Filthy lucre does mean money," said the mother, "but it's lucre, not luck." "Oh," said the boy. "Then what is luck, Mother?" "It's what causes you to have money. If you're lucky, you have money. That's why it's better to be born lucky than rich. If you're rich, you may lose your money, but if you're lucky, you will always get more money." "Oh. Will you? And is Father not lucky?" "Very unlucky, I should say," she said bitterly. The boy watched her with unsure eyes. "Why?" he asked. "I don't know. Nobody ever knows why one person is lucky and another unlucky." "Don't they? Nobody at all? Does nobody know?" "Perhaps God, but he never tells." "He ought to, then. And aren't you lucky either, Mother?" "I can't be if I married an unlucky husband." "But by yourself, aren't you?" "I used to think I was before I married. Now I think I am very unlucky indeed." "Why?" "Well, never mind. Perhaps I'm not really," she said. The child looked at her to see if she meant it. But he saw by the lines of her mouth that she was only trying to hide something from him. "Well, Anyhow, he said stoutly, I'm a lucky person. Why? Said his mother with a sudden laugh. He stared at her. He didn't even know why he had said it. God told me, he asserted, brazening it out. I hope he did, dear, she said, again with a laugh, but rather bitter. He did, mother. Excellent, said the mother, using one of her husband's exclamations. The boy saw she did not believe him, or rather that she paid no attention to his assertion. This angered him somewhat, and made him want to compel her attention. He went off by himself, vaguely, in a childish way, seeking for the clue to luck. Absorbed, taking no heed of other people, he went about with a sort of stealth, seeking inwardly for luck. He wanted luck, he wanted it, he wanted it. When the two girls were playing dolls in the nursery, he would sit on his big rocking horse, charging madly into space, with a frenzy that made the little girls peer at him uneasily. Wildly the horse careered, the waving dark hair of the boy tossed. His eyes had a strange glare in them. The little girls dared not speak to him. When he had ridden to the end of his mad little journey, he climbed down and stood in front of his rocking horse, staring fixedly into its lowered face. Its red mouth was slightly open, its big eye was wide and glassy bright. Now, he would silently command the snorting steed. Now take me to where there is luck. Now take me. And he would slash the horse on the neck with the little whip he had asked Uncle Oscar for. He knew the horse could take him to where there was luck, if only he forced it. So he would mount again and start on his furious ride, hoping at last to get there. He knew he could get there. "You'll break your horse, Paul," said the nurse. "He's always riding like that. I wish he'd leave off," said his elder sister Joan. But he only glared down on them in silence. Nurse gave him up. She could make nothing of him. Anyhow, he was growing beyond her. One day his mother and his Uncle Oscar came in when he was on one of his furious rides. He did not speak to them. "Hello, you young jockey. Riding a winner?" said his uncle. "Aren't you growing too big for a rocking horse? You're not a very little boy any longer, you know," said his mother. But Paul only gave a blue glare from his big, rather close-set eyes. He would speak to nobody when he was in full tilt. His mother watched him with an anxious expression on her face. At last he suddenly stopped forcing his horse into the mechanical gallop and slid down. "Well, I got there," he announced fiercely, his blue eyes still flaring and his sturdy long legs straddling apart. "Where did you get to?" asked his mother. "Where I wanted to go," he flared back at her. "That's right, son," said Uncle Oscar. "Don't you stop till you get there. What's the horse's name?" "He doesn't have a name," said the boy. "Gets on without it all right?" asked the uncle. "Well, he has different names. He was called Sansovino last week." "Sansovino, eh? Won the Ascot. How did you know his name?" "He always talks about horse races with Bassett," said Joan. The uncle was delighted to find that his small nephew was posted with all the racing news. Bassett, the young gardener, who had been wounded in the left foot in the war and had got his present job through Oscar Creswell, whose batman he had been, was a perfect blade of the turf. He lived in the racing events, and the small boy lived with him. Oscar Creswell got it all from Bassett. "Master Paul comes and asks me, so I can't do more than tell him, sir," said Bassett, his face terribly serious, as if he was speaking of religious matters. "And does he ever put anything on a horse he fancies?" "Well, I don't want to give him away. He's a young sport, a fine sport, sir. Would you mind asking him himself?" He sort of takes a pleasure in it, and perhaps he'd feel as I was giving him away, sir, if you don't mind." Bassett was serious as a church. The uncle went back to his nephew and took him off for a ride in the car. "Say, Paul, old man, do you ever put anything on a horse?" the uncle asked. The boy watched the handsome man closely. "Why, do you think I oughtn't to?" he parried. "Not a bit of it. I thought perhaps you might give me a tip for the Lincoln." The car sped on into the country, going down to Uncle Oscar's place in Hampshire. "Honour bright," said the nephew. "Honour bright, son," said the uncle. "Well then, Daffodil." "Daffodil? I doubt it, sonny. What about Mirza?" "I only know the winner," said the boy. "That's Daffodil." "Daffodil, eh?" There was a pause. Daffodil was an obscure horse comparatively. "Uncle?" "Yes, son?" "You won't let it go any further, will you? I promised Bassett." Bassett be damned, old man. What's he got to do with it?" "We're partners. We've been partners from the first. Uncle, he lent me my first 5 shillings, which I lost. I promised him, honour bright, it was only between me and him. Only you gave me that 10-shilling note I started winning with, so I thought you were lucky. You won't let it go any further, will you?" The boy gazed at his uncle from those big, hot, blue eyes set rather close together. The uncle stirred and laughed uneasily. "Right you are, son. I'll keep your tip private. Daffodil, eh? How much are you putting on him?" "All except £20, said the boy. "I keep that in reserve." The uncle thought it a good joke. "You keep £20 in reserve, do you young romancer? What are you betting then?" "I'm betting 300, said the boy gravely. "But it's between you and me, Uncle Oscar. Honour bright?" The uncle burst into a roar of laughter. "It's between you and me, all right, you young Nat Gould," he said, laughing. "But where's your 300? "Bassett keeps it for me. We're partners." "You are you? And what is Bassett putting on Daffodil?" "He won't go quite as high as I do, I expect. Perhaps he'll go 150. "What, pennies?" laughed the uncle. "Pounds?" said the child, with a surprised look at his uncle. "Bassett keeps a bigger reserve than I do." Between wonder and amusement, Uncle Oscar was silent. He pursued the matter no further, but he determined to take his nephew with him to the Lincoln races. "Now, son," he said, "I'm putting 20 on Mirza, and I'll put 5 for you on any horse you fancy. What's your pick?" "Daffodil, uncle." "No, not the 5 on Daffodil." "I should if it was my own 5, said the child. Good, right you are. A 5 for me and a 5 for you on Daffodil." The child had never been to a race meeting before, and his eyes were blue fire. He pursed his mouth tight and watched. A Frenchman just in front had put his money on Lancelot. Wild with excitement, he flayed his arms up and down, yelling, "Lancelot! Lancelot!" in his French accent. Daffodil came in first, Lancelot second, Mirza third. The child, flushed and with eyes blazing, was curiously serene. His uncle brought him 4 5-pound notes, 4 to 1. "What am I to do with these?" he cried, waving them before the boy's eyes. "I suppose we'll talk to Bassett," said the boy. "I expect I have 1,500 now, and 20 in reserve, and this 20. His uncle studied him for some moments. "Look here, son," he said. "You're not serious about Bassett and that 1,500, are you?" "Yes, I am. But it's between you and me, uncle. Honour bright." "Honour bright, all right, son. But I must talk to Bassett." "If you'd like to be a partner, uncle, with Bassett and me, we could all be partners. Only you'd have to promise, honour bright, uncle, not to let it go beyond us 3. Bassett and I are lucky, and you must be lucky because it was your 10 shillings I started winning with." Uncle Oscar took both Bassett and Paul into Richmond Park for an afternoon, and there they talked. "It's like this, you see, sir," Bassett said. "Master Paul would get me talking about racing events, spinning yarns, you know, sir, and he was always keen on knowing if I'd made or if I'd lost. It's about a year since now that I put 5 shillings on Blush of Dawn for him, and we lost. Then the luck turned, with that 10 shillings he had from you, that we put on Singleys. And since that time it's been pretty steady, all things considering. What do you say, Master Paul?" "We're all right when we're sure," said Paul. "It's when we're not quite sure that we go down." "Oh, but we're careful then," said Bassett. "But when you are sure?" smiled Uncle Oscar. "It's Master Paul, sir," said Bassett in a secret, religious voice. "It's as if he had it from heaven. Like Daffodil now for the Lincoln. That was as sure as eggs." "Did you put anything on Daffodil?" asked Oscar Cresswell. "Yes, sir, I made my bit." "And my nephew?" Bassett was obstinately silent, looking at Paul. "I made 1,200, didn't I, Bassett? I told Uncle I was putting 300 on Daffodil." "That's right," said Bassett, nodding. "But where's the money?" asked the uncle. "I keep it safe locked up, sir. Master Paul can have it. He can have it any minute he likes to ask for it." "What, £1,500? And 20? No, sorry, and 20. And 40, that is, with the 20 he made on the course." "It's amazing," said the uncle. "If Master Paul offers you to be partners, sir, I would if I were you, if you'll excuse me," said Bassett. Oscar Cresswell thought about it. "I'll see the money," he said. They drove home again, and sure enough, Bassett came round to the garden house with £1,500 in notes. The £20 reserve was left with Joe Glee in the Turf Commission deposit. "You see, it's all right, Uncle, when I'm sure. Then we go strong for all we're worth, don't we, Bassett?" "We do that, Master Paul." "And when you are sure?" said the uncle, laughing. "Oh, well, sometimes I'm absolutely sure, like about Daffodil," said the boy. "And sometimes I have an idea, and sometimes I haven't even an idea, have I, Bassett? Then we're careful, because we mostly go down." "You do you? And when you're sure, like about Daffodil, what makes you sure, sonny?" "Oh, well, I don't know," said the boy uneasily. "I'm sure you know, Uncle. That's all." "Sorry, I'm sure you know, Uncle. That's all." "It's as if he had it from heaven, sir," Bassett reiterated. "I should say so," said the uncle. But he became a partner. And when the ledger was coming on, Paul was sure about Lively Spark, which was quite an inconsiderable horse. The boy insisted on putting 1,000 on the horse. Bassett went for 500, and Oscar 200. Lively Spark came in first, and the betting had been 10-1 against him. Paul had made 10,000. "You see," he said, "I was absolutely sure of him." Even Oscar Cresswell had cleared 2,000. "Look here, son," he said, "this sort of thing makes me nervous." "It needn't, Uncle. Perhaps I shan't be sure again for a long time." "But what are you going to do with your money?" asked the uncle. "Of course," said the boy, "I started it for Mother. She said she had no luck because Father is unlucky, so I thought if I was lucky, it might stop whispering." "What might stop whispering?" "Our house. I hate our house for whispering." "What does it whisper?" Why, the boy fidgeted. "Why, I don't know, but it's always short of money, you know, Uncle." "I know it, son, I know it." "You know people send Mother writs, don't you, Uncle?" "I'm afraid I do," said the uncle. And then the house whispers, like people laughing at you behind your back. It's awful, that is. I thought if I was lucky—" "You might stop it," added the uncle. The boy watched him with big blue eyes that had an uncanny cold fire in them, and he never said a word. "Well then," said the uncle, "what are we doing?" "I shouldn't like Mother to know I was lucky," said the boy. "Why not, son?" "She'd stop me." "I don't think she would." "Oh," and the boy writhed in an odd way, "I don't want her to know, uncle." "All right, son. We'll manage it without her knowing." They managed it very easily. Paul, at the other's suggestion, handed over £5,000 to his uncle, who deposited it with the family lawyer, who was then to inform Paul's mother that a relative had put £5,000 into his hands, which sum was to be paid out £1,000 at a time on the mother's birthday for the next 5 years. "So she'll have a birthday present of £1,000 for 5 successive years," said Uncle Oscar. I hope it won't make it all the harder for her later." Paul's mother had her birthday in November. The house had been whispering worse than ever lately, and even in spite of his luck, Paul could not bear up against it. He was very anxious to see the effect of the birthday letter, telling his mother about the £1,000. When there were no visitors, Paul now took his meals with his parents, as he was beyond the nursery control. His mother went into town nearly every day. She had discovered that she had an odd knack of sketching furs and dress materials, so she worked secretly in the studio of a friend who was the chief artist for the leading drapers. She drew the figures of ladies in furs and ladies in silk and sequins for the newspaper advertisements. This young woman artist earned several £1,000s a year, but Paul's mother only made several hundreds, and she was again dissatisfied. She so wanted to be first in something, and she did not succeed, even in making sketches for drapery advertisements. She was down to breakfast on the morning of her birthday. Paul watched her face as she read her letters. He knew the lawyer's letter. As his mother read it, her face hardened and became more expressionless. Then a cold, determined look came on her mouth. She hid the letter under the pile of others and said not a word about it. "Didn't you have anything nice in the post for your birthday, Mother?" said Paul. "Quite moderately nice," she said, her voice cold and absent. She went away to town without saying more. But in the afternoon Uncle Oscar appeared. He said Paul's mother had had a long interview with the lawyer, asking if the whole 5,000 could not be advanced at once, as she was in debt. "What do you think, Uncle?" said the boy. "I leave it to you, son." "Oh, let her have it then. We can get some more with the other," said the boy. "A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, laddie," said Uncle Oscar. "But I'm sure to know for the Grand National, or the Lincolnshire, or else the Derby. I'm sure to know for one of them," said Paul. So Uncle Oscar signed the agreement, and Paul's mother touched the whole 5,000. Then something very curious happened. The voices in the house suddenly went mad, like a chorus of frogs on a spring evening. There were certain new furnishings, and Paul had a tutor. He was really going to Eton, his father's school, in the following autumn. There were flowers in the winter, and a blossoming of the luxury Paul's mother had been used to. And yet the voices in the house, behind the sprays of mimosa and almond blossom, and from under the piles of iridescent cushions, simply trilled and screamed in a sort of ecstasy. "There must be more money! Oh, there must be more money! Oh, now! There must be more money! More than ever! More than ever!" It frightened Paul terribly. He studied away at his Latin and Greek with his tutors, but his intense hours were spent with Bassett. The Grand National had gone by. He had not known, and had lost £100. Summer was at hand. He was in agony for the Lincoln, but even for the Lincoln he didn't know, and he lost £50. He became wild-eyed and strange, as if something were going to explode in him. "Let it alone, son. Don't you bother about it," urged Uncle Oscar, but it was as if the boy couldn't really hear what his uncle was saying. "I've got to know for the Derby. I've got to know for the Derby," the child reiterated, his big blue eyes blazing with a sort of madness. His mother noticed how overwrought he was. "You'd better go to the seaside. Wouldn't you like to go now to the seaside instead of waiting? I think you'd better," she said, looking down at him anxiously, her heart curiously heavy because of him. But the child lifted his uncanny blue eyes. "I couldn't possibly go before the Derby, Mother," he said. "I couldn't possibly." "Why not?" she said, her voice becoming heavy when she was opposed. "Why not? You can still go from the seaside to see the Derby with your Uncle Oscar, if that's what you wish. No need for you to wait here. Besides, I think you care too much about these races. It's a bad sign. My family has been a gambling family, and you won't know till you grow up how much damage it has done. But it has done damage. I shall have to send Bassett away and ask Uncle Oscar not to talk racing with you unless you promise to be reasonable about it. Go away to the seaside and forget it. You're all nerves." "I'll do what you like, Mother, so long as you don't send me away till after the Derby," the boy said. "Send you away from where? Just from this house?" "Yes," he said, gazing at her. "Why, you curious child, what makes you care about this house so much suddenly? I never knew you loved it." He gazed at her without speaking. He had a secret within a secret, something he had not divulged even to Bassett or his Uncle Oscar. But his mother, after standing undecided and a little bit sullen for some moments, said, "Very well then. Don't go to the seaside till after the Derby, if you don't wish it. But promise me you won't let your nerves go to pieces. Promise you won't think so much about horse racing and events, as you call them." "Oh no," said the boy casually. "I won't think much about them, Mother. You needn't worry. I wouldn't worry, Mother, if I were you." "If you were me and I were you," said his mother, "I wonder what we should do." "But you know you needn't worry, Mother, don't you?" the boy repeated. "I should be awfully glad to know it," she said wearily. "Oh, well, you can, you know. I mean, you ought to know you needn't worry," he insisted. "Ought I? Then I'll see about it," she said. Paul's secret of secrets was his wooden horse, that which had no name. Since he was emancipated from a nurse and a nursery governess, he had had his rocking horse removed to his own bedroom at the top of the house. "Surely you're too big for a rocking horse," his mother had remonstrated. "Well, you see, Mother, till I can have a real horse, I like to have some sort of animal about," had been his quaint answer. "Do you feel he keeps you company?" she laughed. "Oh yes, he's very good. He always keeps me company when I'm there," said Paul. So the horse, rather shabby, stood in an arrested prance in the boy's bedroom. The Derby was drawing near, and the boy grew more and more tense. He hardly heard what was spoken to him. He was very frail, and his eyes were really uncanny. His mother had sudden strange seizures of uneasiness about him. Sometimes, for half an hour, she would feel a sudden anxiety about him that was almost anguish. She wanted to rush to him at once and know he was safe. 2 nights before the Derby, she was at a big party in town, when one of her rushes of anxiety about her boy, her firstborn, gripped her heart till she could hardly speak. She fought with the feeling, might and main, for she believed in common sense, but it was too strong. She had to leave the dance and go downstairs to telephone to the country. The children's nursery governess was terribly surprised and startled at being rung up in the night. Are the children all right, Mrs. Wilmot? Oh, yes, they are quite all right. Master Paul, is he all right? He went to bed as right as a trivet. Shall I run up and look at him? No, said Paul's mother reluctantly. No, don't trouble. It's all right, don't sit up. We shall be home fairly soon. She did not want her son's privacy intruded upon. Very good, said the governess. It was about 1 o'clock when Paul's mother and father drove up to their house. All was still. Paul's mother went to her room and slipped off her white fur cloak. She had told her maid not to wait up for her. She heard her husband downstairs, mixing a whisky and soda. And then, because of the strange anxiety at her heart, she stole upstairs to her son's room. Noiselessly she went along the upper corridor.
Excuse me.
Was there a faint noise? What was it? She stood with arrested muscles outside his door, listening. There was a strange, heavy, and yet not loud noise. Her heart stood still. It was a soundless noise, yet rushing and powerful. Something huge, in violent, hushed motion. What was it? What in God's name was it? She ought to know. She felt that she knew the noise. She knew what it was, yet she could not place it. She couldn't say what it was. And on it went, like a madness. Softly, frozen with anxiety and fear, she turned the door handle. The room was dark. Yet, in the space near the window, she heard and saw something plunging to and fro. She gazed in fear and amazement. Then, suddenly, she switched on the light and saw her son, in his green pyjamas, madly surging on the rocking horse. The blaze of light suddenly lit him up as he urged the wooden horse, and lit her up as she stood, blonde in the dress of pale green and crystal, in the doorway. "Paul!" she cried. "Whatever are you doing?" "It's Malabar!" he screamed in a powerful, strange voice. "It's Malabar!" His eyes blazed at her for one strange and senseless second as he ceased urging his wooden horse. Then he fell with a crash to the ground, and she, all her tormented motherhood flooding upon her, rushed to gather him up. But he was unconscious, and unconscious he remained, with some brain fever. He talked and tossed, and his mother sat stonily by his side. "Malabar! It's Malabar! Bassett! Bassett! I know! It's Malabar!" So the child cried, trying to get up and urge the rocking horse that gave him his inspiration. "What does he mean by Malabar?" asked the heart-frozen mother. "I don't know," said the father stonily. "What does he mean by Malabar?" she asked her brother Oscar. "It's one of the horses running for the Derby," was the answer. And in spite of himself, Oscar Cresswell spoke to Bassett, and himself put 1,000 on Malabar at 14-1. The third day of the illness was critical. They were waiting for a change. The boy, with his rather long curly hair, was tossing ceaselessly on the pillow. He neither slept nor regained consciousness, and his eyes were like blue stones. His mother sat, feeling her heart had gone, turned actually into a stone. In the evening, Oscar Cresswell did not come, but Bassett sent a message saying could he come up for 1 moment, just 1 moment. Paul's mother was very angry at the intrusion, but on second thought she agreed. The boy was the same. Perhaps Bassett might bring him to consciousness. The gardener, a shortish fellow with a little brown moustache and sharp little brown eyes, tiptoed into the room, touched his imaginary cap to Paul's mother, and stole to the bedside, staring with glittering, smallish eyes at the tossing, dying child. "Master Paul," he whispered. "Master Paul, Malabar came in first all right, a clean win. I did as you told me. You've made over £70,000, you have. You've got over 80,000. Malabar came in all right, Master Paul. Malabar! Malabar! Did I say Malabar, Mother? Did I say Malabar? Do you think I'm lucky, Mother? I knew Malabar, didn't I? Over £80,000. I call that lucky, don't you, Mother? Over £80,000. I knew, didn't I? Know I knew. Malabar came in all right. If I ride my horse till I'm sure, then I tell you, Bassett, you can go as high as you like. Did you go for all you were worth, Bassett? I went 1,000 on it, Master Paul. I never told you, Mother, that if I can ride my horse and get there, then I'm absolutely sure. Oh, absolutely. Mother, did I ever tell you I am lucky?
No, you never did, said the mother. But the boy died in the night. And even as he lay dead, his mother heard her brother's voice saying to her, "My God, Hester, you're 80,000 to the good, and a poor devil of a son to the bad. But poor devil, he's best gone out of a life where he rides his rocking horse to find a winner." The end. Thank you for listening. And I think the moral there is don't gamble. Especially, don't gamble, kids. Even if you're sure, even if you've got some kind of, you know, supernatural ability to tell the winners, it's still not a good idea. It still ruins lives. And don't be obsessed with money. Yeah, like, the mum is just like, she should maybe take a step back and appreciate her life and her kids, rather than just needing constantly to have more money. Money does not bring you happiness, I think, is the main moral of that one. But yeah, I thought it's a cool little, the actual, like, idea of, you know, riding a rocking horse in order to get the name for the winner of a horse race. I think that's quite a fun little idea. Yeah, an interesting one. Yeah. I enjoyed that one. Bit sad, obviously. Oh. But yeah, it was good. I don't think we'll raid over tonight. I'm quite tired. But I really should get back to... Hopefully I will be back on more regular streams after this now. I don't have another crazy couple of months yet. So, yeah. But yes, I hope you enjoyed those 3 little stories. I certainly did. In theory, Sam will be back on Saturday for the next part of the Nightland. So stay tuned for that. And in theory, I shall be back next Wednesday. That's the plan, indeed. But yes, we will keep you posted for any other things. And yeah, go take care of yourselves. Be good people that you are. Thank you all very much for being here, and we shall see you again soon. Goodbye.